What if the greatest scientific breakthroughs had already happened thousands of years ago? In this episode, we journey through 10 of the most baffling archaeological finds ever unearthed, each one challenging what we think we know about ancient technology, lost civilizations, and forgotten knowledge. Welcome to Epoch Ancient Mysteries. Let's begin. Derinkuyu Underground City? Beneath the quiet plains of Cappadocia, Turkey, lies one of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries of the ancient world, Derinkuyu Underground City. At first glance, the region appears unassuming, dotted with soft volcanic rock formations and cave dwellings. But in 1963, a local resident renovating his basement stumbled upon a hidden chamber, and behind it, a tunnel that seemed to stretch endlessly downward. What he had discovered was only the first entrance to a massive subterranean metropolis carved deep into the earth. Derinkuyu descends at least 18 levels, reaching depths of over 85 meters. The sprawling complex contains hundreds of rooms, residential quarters, kitchens, storage spaces, stables, wells, ventilation shafts, and even churches and schools. Archaeologists estimate it could have housed up to 20,000 people, including food, livestock, and all necessary provisions, for extended periods of time. The infrastructure is astonishingly sophisticated. Vertical air shafts bring fresh oxygen down to the lowest levels. Hidden passageways connect various sections, while massive circular stone doors, up to 1,500 pounds each, could be rolled into place to block entrances during times of siege. Carving such a vast city into the soft, tough rock of Cappadocia required remarkable planning and labor. The age of the city remains uncertain. While the most conservative estimates place its expansion during the Byzantine era, circa 5th to 10th century CE, some researchers suggest that its origins may date back to the Phrygian period around 8th century BCE, or even earlier. Unfortunately, the lack of inscriptions or datable artifacts in the lower levels makes it difficult to determine the precise timeline of its construction. Why was Derinkuyu built? The most widely accepted theory is that it served as a refuge during invasions. Central Anatolia was frequently caught between warring empires, and its inhabitants may have sought protection underground. Others believe the underground cities were primarily monastic or religious in purpose. More speculative theories propose that Derinkuyu was a response to environmental catastrophe, or even a relic from a forgotten civilization with reasons lost to history. What makes Derinkuyu so mysterious is not just its size, but the degree of engineering involved, and the fact that it was forgotten for centuries. Multiple other underground complexes have been discovered in Cappadocia, some connected by miles of tunnels. Yet none rival Derinkuyu in scale and complexity. Was it the product of generations of desperate survival, or the legacy of an ancient society that mastered life beneath the earth? Archaeology has yet to give us a definitive answer. For now, Derinkuyu remains a silent city, its dark halls and carved chambers whispering secrets from a time when humanity chose to disappear below ground. Nan Madol, the lost stone city floating on the Pacific. Off the eastern shore of Pohnpei, a remote island in the Federated States of Micronesia, lie the ruins of a mysterious city built entirely on a coral reef. Known as Nan Madol, this ancient site stretches across nearly 100 artificial islets, linked by a network of canals that earned it the nickname the Venice of the Pacific. But unlike Venice, Nan Madol wasn't built with wood or brick. Its foundations and walls were constructed using massive basalt stones, some weighing as much as 50 tons, stacked in a distinctive crisscross pattern that has baffled archaeologists for decades. The city is believed to have been the ceremonial and political center of the Saudeleur dynasty, which ruled the island of Pohnpei from around the 12th century CE until the 1600s. It was here that rulers governed, conducted rituals, and maintained control over the surrounding islands. Yet what makes Nan Madol so extraordinary isn't just its role in local history, it's how it was built and why. Transporting such enormous basalt stones across the island and then out onto a shallow reef would be a logistical nightmare even with today's equipment. Yet centuries ago, without the aid of metal tools or pulleys, the builders somehow quarried, shaped, and positioned an estimated 750,000 metric tons of stone to form temples, tombs, dwellings, and defensive walls. The nearest known quarry is on the opposite side of Pohnpei, over 20 miles away, raising difficult questions about how the material was moved. Local oral traditions offer one explanation, that the stones were levitated by sorcery. While obviously symbolic, these myths reflect the deep sense of awe that Nan Madol has long inspired among islanders. Even today, many residents believe the site is haunted or protected by ancestral spirits, and they avoid venturing there after dark. Despite centuries of weathering, many of Nan Madol's structures remain standing. The most prominent complex, known as Nandawas, was once the royal mortuary and still contains large burial crypts surrounded by towering basalt walls. Yet no written records remain, and no detailed building plans have ever been uncovered. This absence of documentation leaves archaeologists with more questions than answers. Was Nan Madol merely a regional power center, or the ceremonial heart of a now-lost maritime civilization? Was it a city, a fortress, a spiritual sanctuary, or all three? And most enduringly, how did its builders transport and assemble such immense stone structures on top of a shallow reef? Nan Madol today sits in silence, slowly sinking beneath the tides. A ghost city built on coral and basalt, holding tightly to secrets that have yet to be unlocked. Yonaguni Monument, nature's puzzle or a sunken civilization. Beneath the waves off the coast of Yonaguni Island, Japan, lies a structure that has fascinated divers and baffled archaeologists for decades. At a depth of around 25 meters, resting on the ocean floor, is a massive formation of stone terraces, platforms, steps, and sharp right-angled edges, some rising as tall as a 5-story building. Discovered by a diver in 1986, the so-called Yonaguni Monument soon became the center of one of the most controversial archaeological debates in modern history. The monument appears strikingly geometric: flat surfaces, 90-degree corners, long corridors, stair-like terraces, and even what resembles a stage or altar. Some of the stone slabs are nearly 10 meters wide and extend for dozens of meters. For many observers, the formation looks unmistakably artificial, as if carved by human hands. Proponents of the theory that it is a man-made structure argue that it may be the remnants of an ancient city, lost to rising seas after the last ice age, possibly dating back as far as 10,000 years ago. If true, it would drastically rewrite our understanding of early civilization in East Asia. The leading voice supporting the man-made theory is marine geologist Dr. Masaaki Kimura, who has studied the site for decades. He claims to have identified roads, walls, stairs, and even what may be inscriptions or symbols carved into the stone. According to Kimura, the site could be part of a larger underwater city complex once above sea level before being submerged by rising oceans at the end of the last glacial period. But not everyone agrees. Skeptics, including many geologists and mainstream archaeologists, argue that the monument is a natural formation, an example of well-known geological processes acting on sandstone, which naturally breaks into flat surfaces and straight lines. They suggest that wave erosion, earthquakes, and tectonic activity shaped the structure into what we see today. From this perspective, the human-like shapes are coincidental or the result of minor alterations made by early settlers who may have used the formation as a ceremonial site, but did not construct it from scratch. Adding to the mystery, no definitive artifacts, no pottery, tools, or bones, have been found directly within the structure to confirm prolonged human occupation. Yet the site remains deeply compelling, not just because of its appearance, but because it blurs the line between geology and archaeology. Is Yonaguni an ancient ruin swallowed by the sea, evidence of a forgotten maritime civilization? Or is it a natural masterpiece, its angles and shapes merely a trick of nature and human imagination? Until conclusive evidence is found, one way or the other, the Yonaguni Monument remains one of the world's most enigmatic underwater mysteries, resting silently beneath the currents of the East China Sea. The Sumerian king list, history or myth written in stone. In the ancient ruins of Mesopotamia, cradle of the earliest known civilizations, archaeologists unearthed a text unlike any other. Carved into clay tablets and inscribed in cuneiform script, the Sumerian king list does more than chronicle the rulers of early Mesopotamia. It records the reigns of kings lasting for hundreds, even thousands of years. Some ruled for 36,000 years. Others, for 28,800. And then, curiously, after a great flood, the reign lengths suddenly dropped to more plausible durations. What exactly is this document? First discovered in the early 20th century near the site of ancient Nippur, in modern-day Iraq, versions of the Sumerian king list have since been found on more than a dozen tablets and fragments. Each version differs slightly, but the core structure remains, a sequential list of kings from different city-states such as Eridu, Uruk, Kish, and Uar. The list is organized chronologically, each king's name followed by the length of his reign and the city from which he ruled. The list opens with the phrase, "After kingship had descended from heaven, kingship was in Eridu." That alone signals something more than a mere historical record. It suggests divine origins for kingship itself, a sacred institution passed from the gods to humanity. The earliest kings mentioned, Alyalim, Alalgar, and Enmenluana, supposedly reigned for tens of thousands of years. Then comes the line that has puzzled scholars for generations, then the flood swept over. After this deluge, the king list resumes with shorter, more realistic reigns, reflecting the rise of historical figures like Gilgamesh, who appears both in the king list and the Epic of Gilgamesh. Some scholars view the list as a blend of myth, memory, and political propaganda. It was likely compiled during the third dynasty of Uar, around 2100 BC, to legitimize Sumerian kingship by showing a continuous, divinely sanctioned lineage. By weaving together history, legend, and theology, the text aimed to unify rival city-states under a shared past. But others wonder if the exaggeration contains a kernel of truth. Could the impossibly long reigns reflect oral traditions of pre-dynastic rulers, later deified? Might the Great Flood refer to a real catastrophic event that reset Mesopotamian civilization? There is even speculation among fringe theorists that the list preserves memory of an antediluvian civilization, one erased by time and cataclysm. The Sumerian king list is more than a catalogue of rulers. It is a lens into how the ancient world perceived power, time, and divine order. Whether it reflects history distorted by myth, or myth preserving fragments of forgotten history, remains an open question. For now, the king list stands as both record and riddle, an ancient document that challenges the boundary between history and legend. The Plain of Jars, megaliths of mystery on the Laotian Plateau. Scattered across the highlands of central Laos lie thousands of massive stone vessels, some standing over 3 meters tall and weighing several tons. These enigmatic jars, numbering more than 2,000 across over 90 sites, are carved from solid rock and positioned seemingly at random across the Xiangkuang Plateau. No inscriptions, no markings, and no clear explanations accompany them. The locals call it the Plain of Jars, and for over a century, archaeologists have puzzled over their origin, function, and meaning. The jars are made from a variety of materials: sandstone, granite, conglomerate, quarried from nearby mountains and painstakingly transported to their final resting places. Most are hollowed cylinders with wide mouths and thick walls, some lidded, others open. Many sit alone, others cluster in small or large groups across open fields, hillsides, and mountaintops. Their sheer number and consistency in form suggest a shared cultural purpose, one that has yet to be definitively determined. Local legends offer one explanation: the jars were created by giants to brew rice wine for victory celebrations after battle. It's a tale passed down through generations, but one that lacks archaeological support. More serious hypotheses have focused on their potential funerary use. Excavations at certain jar sites have uncovered human remains, including teeth, bone fragments, burial goods, and cremated ash, dating to as far back as 500 BC. Some jars are surrounded by stone discs or lids, while others rest near ancient burial pits, leading many researchers to believe they were used in complex mortuary rituals, possibly to store bodies before final interment. But questions remain. If the jars were used for funerary purposes, why are they so widely dispersed? Why are many placed in isolated, elevated locations rather than near known settlements? And who were the people who built them? Despite extensive research, the culture responsible for the jars remains nameless, with no written records and little evidence of permanent habitation near the main jar sites. Complicating the mystery is the presence of unexploded ordnance, UXO, left over from the Vietnam War. The region surrounding the Plain of Jars was heavily bombed, and to this day, many areas remain off-limits to archaeologists and tourists alike due to safety concerns. Only a handful of sites have been fully cleared and excavated, meaning much of the region's archaeological potential remains locked beneath the surface, both literally and metaphorically. The Plain of Jars is recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, not only for its archaeological significance but for the questions it still poses. Whether funerary urns, water vessels, fermentation vats, or markers of an ancient cosmology, these silent monoliths endure, weathered by time, war, and uncertainty. Until more answers emerge, the jars of Laos will continue to sit quietly across the landscape, mute sentinels of a forgotten culture, whispering secrets we have yet to decipher. The Uffington White Horse, a prehistoric enigma etched into the hillside. On the rolling chalk hills of Oxfordshire, England, a vast white figure stretches across the slope, visible for miles in every direction. This is the Uffington White Horse, an enormous stylized image of a horse, carved directly into the earth by removing the topsoil to reveal the gleaming white chalk beneath. Measuring over 110 meters long, its sweeping lines and abstract form have fascinated archaeologists and travelers for centuries. But despite its prominence and age, the white horse's origins and purpose remain uncertain. Unlike many similar hill figures across Britain, which often date to more recent historical periods, the Uffington horse is genuinely ancient. Radiocarbon dating of the chalk layers and surrounding sediments places its creation sometime between 1380 and 550 BC, firmly in the Late Bronze Age or Early Iron Age. That makes it the oldest known geoglyph in Britain, and potentially the oldest surviving hill figure in the world. What makes the Uffington horse so mysterious is that it defies easy classification. Its long, slender limbs and exaggerated curves do not resemble the naturalistic horses depicted in later Celtic or Roman art. Some researchers believe it may represent a tribal emblem, a symbol of territorial identity carved into the hillside to assert dominance over the surrounding land. Others suggest a more spiritual purpose, that the horse was a sacred symbol associated with solar or fertility cults, perhaps connected to the worship of Epona, the Celtic horse goddess. Adding to the mystery is the figure's alignment with ancient routes and nearby landmarks. The horse overlooks the Vale of White Horse and lies close to several significant prehistoric sites, including Uffington Castle, an Iron Age hill fort just above the figure, and Wayland's Smithy, a Neolithic long barrow. Some have speculated that the white horse may have played a role in seasonal rituals or processions, its placement possibly aligned with astronomical events like solstices or equinoxes. Despite its great age, the figure has remained remarkably well preserved, thanks to centuries of careful maintenance. Local traditions going back to at least the medieval period required communities to scour the figure, cleaning the chalk and reshaping its edges to preserve its form. Without this regular upkeep, the horse would have quickly faded into the hillside. That it survived at all is a testament to its enduring significance. Yet even after decades of study, no definitive explanation for its creation has emerged. No inscriptions accompany the figure, and no associated settlement or structure has been directly linked to its construction. Was it a symbol of power, a spiritual icon, or something entirely different? An ancient message meant to be seen from the sky? The Uffington white horse remains an enduring mystery etched into the land itself, a silent witness from a time before written history, galloping forever across the English countryside. Chavín de Huántar acoustic tunnels, architecture that speaks in echoes. High in the Andean highlands of northern Peru, nestled between steep mountain passes, lies the archaeological site of Chavín de Huántar, a ceremonial complex once home to one of South America's oldest pre-Inca cultures. Built between 1200 and 500 BCE, this ancient religious center is best known for its intricate stonework, carved iconography, and subterranean passageways. But in recent decades, a more unexpected mystery has captured the attention of archaeologists and acousticians alike: the site's remarkable use of sound. Chavín's labyrinthine network of underground tunnels and galleries was not designed solely for movement or storage. Studies suggest that its architecture may have been deliberately engineered to manipulate sound. Inside the maze of stone corridors, voices echo and reverberate in unusual ways. Some frequencies are amplified, others suppressed. In particular, low-frequency sounds, such as those produced by conch-shell trumpets called pututus, resonate throughout the complex with surprising clarity and intensity. When blown within the tunnels, these pututus can produce deep, pulsing tones that bounce off the stone walls, creating disorienting acoustics. Modern experiments have shown that the sound can seem to come from multiple directions at once, making it nearly impossible to locate its source. In darkness, surrounded by booming, directionless noise, ancient pilgrims may have felt themselves enveloped by the voice of the divine. This manipulation of sound was not accidental. The tunnel's layout, with their narrow corridors, stone chambers, and concealed ventilation shafts, appears to have been crafted with acoustic performance in mind. Researchers believe that priests or shamans may have used these effects to heighten the sensory experience of ritual participants, inducing awe, fear, or altered states of perception. Some theorize that such sonic control could have reinforced the priest's authority, as if they alone could summon the voice of the gods. At the heart of the complex stands the Lanzan, a 4.5-meter tall granite monolith carved with an image of a fanged deity, believed to be central to Chavín religion. It sits in a chamber deep within the tunnels, accessible only by narrow passages. The chamber's acoustics further amplify any spoken words or sounds, giving the illusion that the stone itself might be speaking. Yet many questions remain. Were the acoustic properties of Chavín the result of conscious design or a fortuitous discovery later ritualized? Did all pilgrims experience these effects, or were they reserved for initiates? And what role did sound truly play in the rituals of this ancient culture? Today, the echoing chambers of Chavín de Huántar are silent, their secrets buried in stone and reverberation. But the architecture still speaks, in frequencies that hint at a forgotten mastery of sensory design, where sound became sacred and stone became an instrument of the gods. Temple of the Feathered Serpent, metallic spheres in the ancient darkness. At the heart of the ancient city of Teotihuacan, just outside modern-day Mexico City, stands a massive stepped pyramid adorned with carved stone heads of feathered serpents, Quetzalcoatl, the Mesoamerican deity of wind and wisdom. This is the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, the third largest pyramid in the complex, built sometime between 100 and 200 CE. While the temple itself is a marvel of engineering and cosmological symbolism, it is what lies beneath that has puzzled archaeologists in recent years. In 2003, a heavy rainstorm opened a previously undiscovered sinkhole near the foot of the temple. Beneath it, archaeologists led by Sergio Gomez unearthed a 100-meter-long underground tunnel that had been deliberately sealed nearly 1,800 years ago. As the team excavated deeper, using laser mapping, robotic vehicles, and years of careful digging, they encountered an array of ritual offerings: seashells, obsidian knives, jade, rubber balls, and sculptures. But among the most unusual discoveries were hundreds of small metallic spheres, some as large as 5 centimeters in diameter, scattered across the floor of 2 side chambers near the tunnel's end. Made of clay and coated in a yellowish metallic material called jarosite, a compound formed by the oxidation of pyrite, these balls shimmered under artificial light like gold. Their surfaces were once highly polished, and many were found in groups, as if deliberately arranged. The exact purpose of these spheres remains unknown. They contained no internal materials, served no apparent structural function, and were not commonly found in other Mesoamerican sites. Some researchers believe they may have represented stars, seeds, or other cosmological symbols, objects imbued with ritual or spiritual meaning. Others suggest they may have been part of initiation rites or offerings meant to appease deities in the underworld. The tunnel itself is thought to have symbolized a sacred journey, a passage to the underworld or the divine womb of the earth. It led toward 3 chambers at its terminus, which Gomez believes may have been a ceremonial or symbolic replica of the cosmos. Despite years of excavation, no royal tomb has been found, although the scale of the construction and the richness of the offerings suggest that this was a site of extraordinary importance. Why was the tunnel sealed so deliberately? Who placed the metallic spheres, and why were they left behind untouched? And why did the builders of Teotihuacan, whose writing system, language, and rulers remain largely unknown, go to such lengths to hide this subterranean world beneath one of their most sacred temples? The Temple of the Feathered Serpent continues to guard its secrets in stone and darkness. The shimmering spheres it concealed for centuries now sit in museum glass, but their meaning, like the city that created them, remains suspended between ritual, symbolism, and mystery. Ain Dara Footprints. In the northwest of Syria, near the modern town of Afrin, the ruins of an Iron Age temple known as Ain Dara rise from the landscape in sandstone blocks and weathered basalt. Dating from roughly 1300 to 700 BCE, this monumental structure was once dedicated to an unknown Syro-Hittite deity, possibly Ishtar or a storm god. Though heavily damaged by time, and more recently by modern conflict, one of its most intriguing features still captures the imagination of archaeologists and visitors alike: a series of colossal footprints carved directly into the temple's stone threshold. These footprints are massive, approximately 1 meter in length, far exceeding the size of a human foot. 3 prints are visible, one at the temple's outer entrance, another at the inner threshold, and a third deeper inside the sanctuary. Each appears to represent the bare foot of a humanoid figure. The spacing between them suggests purposeful placement, as if recording the steps of a giant striding into the sacred space. Their presence has sparked intense debate. Some interpret them as symbolic, meant to indicate the divine presence of a god entering the temple, reinforcing the idea that this space was not merely for human rituals but was the literal house of a deity. In this reading, the footprints were a visual cue for worshippers, making the unseen power of the divine something concrete, etched in stone. Others propose a more ritualistic explanation. The footprints may have played a role in ceremonial reenactments, where priests or initiates symbolically followed the path of the deity, stepping where the god was believed to have stepped. This theory aligns with other known ancient Near Eastern practices, where architecture and ritual often intertwined to simulate divine processions or cosmic journeys. But the carvings also raise questions. Why only 3 prints? Why no accompanying inscription to explain their presence? And why such an unusually literal depiction of the divine, when most Near Eastern temples favored symbolic representation through statues, reliefs, or mythic motifs? Adding to the mystery is Ain Dara's remarkable resemblance to the biblical description of Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. Both share similar layout proportions, decorative elements like guardian lions and sphinxes, and an emphasis on a central sanctuary accessed through multiple thresholds. Whether this similarity is coincidental or evidence of broader architectural influence across the Levant remains a topic of scholarly investigation. Today, the footprints at Ain Dara remain one of the few surviving clues to the religious life of a long-lost culture. Their purpose is unclear, their symbolism debated, and their meaning lost to time. But they endure, weathered and silent, as if awaiting the return of whatever force once walked across those stones. Egyptian blue, the ancient color that refuses to fade. Thousands of years ago, artisans in ancient Egypt created a color unlike anything the world had seen before, a vivid, glowing pigment that adorned tombs, statues, and temples across the Nile Valley. Today, we call it Egyptian blue, and while it was once thought to be simply decorative, modern science has uncovered properties that suggest this pigment may hold technological secrets far beyond its visual appeal. Egyptian blue, known in antiquity as kesbech, is considered the first synthetic pigment in history. Its production dates back as early as the 4th dynasty, circa 2500 BCE, and it remained in use across the Mediterranean world for over a millennium. It was created by heating a mixture of quartz sand, copper compounds, lime, and natron to temperatures exceeding 800 degrees Celsius, producing a vibrant blue material made of calcium copper silicate. The pigment was prized for its brilliance and durability. It decorated wall paintings, sarcophagi, and sculpture, notably the crown of the famous bust of Nefertiti. It was often reserved for depictions of deities, royalty, and the afterlife, blue being associated with the heavens, the Nile, and divine protection. Its use declined after the Roman period, and the method of its production was eventually lost. But Egyptian blue's story didn't end in antiquity. In recent years, scientists studying samples of the pigment under modern instruments made a startling discovery. The material emits infrared radiation when exposed to visible light. This phenomenon, known as near-infrared luminescence, means that Egyptian blue glows invisibly in wavelengths beyond human vision, and it does so with remarkable efficiency. This quality has opened new possibilities. Researchers are now exploring how Egyptian blue, or its synthetic derivatives, could be used in infrared sensing, biomedical imaging, and even solar energy applications. In 2020, a German team developed nanosheets of Egyptian blue only a few nanometers thick, capable of producing strong infrared signals. In a surprising twist of history, an ancient funerary pigment may one day help power next-generation imaging systems or solar cells. Why did the ancient Egyptians develop such a pigment? There's no evidence they understood its infrared properties, yet their process was both precise and sophisticated. It required consistent high heat and carefully measured ingredients, an early example of controlled chemical engineering. Its widespread presence in tombs and temples suggests it held symbolic as well as aesthetic value, perhaps seen as a conduit between the living and the divine. Today, Egyptian blue stands as a testament to the ingenuity of ancient craftsmanship. What began as a sacred color has become an unlikely bridge between past and future, its hue as rich in mystery as it is in science. From the sands of Egypt to the hidden tunnels beneath ancient temples, these discoveries remind us that history is far from settled. We may never know the full truth behind these artifacts, but one thing is certain: the ancient world was far more complex and perhaps far more advanced than we ever imagined. Which mystery fascinated you the most? Let us know in the comments. And if you're ready for more journeys into the unexplained, subscribe to Epoch Ancient Mysteries and step deeper into the past. The next enigma is waiting.